Good Wednesday evening, everybody. I'm Chris Therien, former Philadelphia Flyer, and welcome to our host venue, Total Turf Experience here in Pittsburgh, New Jersey. I'm with my great friend here and counterpart for many years, Flyers head athletic trainer, Jim McCrossin. Jimmy, great to have you here, and I know we're going to have a little bit of fun this week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're going to have a lot of fun this week. We're going to reminisce a little bit about what we did and how we kept ourselves in shape, and what happens when athletes leave the sport.
So, really, the best guy I could probably use, and you probably could attest it. I was one of these guys that could put on 1 pound when I played, looking at 1 pound, just staring at it. So I'd always say when I played, it was always a challenge for me to try to maintain my weight at about 235, 240. It got a little bit more serious as time went on over the years, but for me, I'm just saying, in my playing days, that was a difficult thing for me, Jimmy, to be able to try to keep the weight off as you're maneuvering the NHL schedule. Other guys found it easier. Is that still something that the coaches, even to this day, really monitor players' weight on a daily basis?
Yeah, weights always seem to be monitored. Like us, I can remember going back to Roger, and 3 times a week, 4 times a week, we'd have to weigh in with him. And we do body fats at least once a month, right? And but it's still being monitored. Body fat's still being monitored. Now we have so many different things that we're monitoring right now in terms of load and sleep. But you are not unlike many athletes, though. Back then, even today. I was thinking about what we used to do in the summer months.
Yeah.
And we'd be out at Eastern Track at 6:30 in the morning to beat the heat.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be myself and Chris. It'd be
Danny McGillis,
Fridgie,
Todd Fedora,
Rex,
Yep.
Johnny. We'd have a crew there, but we made a commitment to get out there and run and to do our sprints and to do everything that nobody wanted to do. And then we take a little time off. Remember, we go to the produce place, buy produce. We make smoothies. Yep. Then we'd be upstairs and we'd be lifting, and we put in a full day. And what happens though when you retire, right, is that those days you're not being pushed anymore. And it seems like many athletes in today's world just say, you know what, I'm not going to go out and do it. I don't have to do it. I don't want to do it. And I'd rather watch the show that's on TV coming up.
So that leads right back to me again. And, as many of you have seen, covering sports or seen on Facebook or Twitter, it was in the, let me see here, spring of 2015. I'd done my first year of TV between the benches. And I never was really one guy to go back and watch myself on tape. It's not to watch, it's broadcasting. So. But I saw a picture of myself and I said, that is just absurd to look. I look like a fat mess between the benches. And I'm okay to say that. That's how I felt about myself. And what I realized I could do was do something about it. You're right though, Jimmy, when you talk about the fact that players leave the game and almost simultaneously and instantly you flip your clock off, realizing that you're not tethered to anybody anymore, and you go out and you eat, and you drink, and maybe you do a little bit of things in excess, but the difference is that you're not burning it off the next day in practice. So that's really, I think, the amazing challenge with that part of it. But it's something that I've just looked at the way players are now. I've seen players post-hockey, guys like me that really struggled to keep weight off, and I was one of those springed off and took off. And then I've seen other players like my longtime partner, Eric Desjardins, who I found out at the end of it, he played at about 185.
Yeah, about that.
And I didn't realize until I saw him a year after at the alumni tournament that he had struggled to stay to 170. That's incredible. And so there's a total example of a guy who was feeding himself extra during the year to maintain that muscle and the mass he had.
Yeah, no, Rico, I can remember the first time I saw him when we went up to Montreal and he came down. I looked at him like, oh my God, like you can still play the game. He says, I lost a lot of my muscle mass. And obviously he was dressed in a suit and looking, but he says, if you look at my legs, look at my butt, that's where our strength is for our sport, right? It was gone. And he said, I'm trying to work out, but I'm not working out obviously as vigorous as I once did. You know, he's trying to be a dad now. And as Chris, I'm trying to get back into normal life. And like I said, many athletes do it. You know, one of the questions are like you see a lot of boxers, and not just pick all boxers because it's athletics are right across the board. But unfortunately, boxers you usually see without the shirt on, right?
Yeah.
And when they come out, they may do an exhibition bout, or they come out like George Foreman did after he got done. He got bigger and bigger and bigger. If you can remember when he won the gold medal in the Olympics, he was ripped. And by the time he got done, he was fighting Muhammad Ali, right? He was huge, right? And it happens to athletes right across the board. One story, and not about you, but Heimer, Paul Ranheim, right? Paul Ranheim told me that I stay in touch with him. He's out in Arizona. He gained 70 pounds after the first year. And now here's a guy that was cut, and he could play the game. But what he did, he and his wife went out to dinner every night. And every night they'd have a bottle of wine. And he said, because that's what we normally did when I wasn't playing. We'd go out and we'd have a bottle of wine. Well, one day he came out and he says, I looked in the mirror and he says, oh my God. He said, what have I become? And then it triggered in his head that, you know, I got to do something. Again, like many athletes, right? Like yourself.
You turned into a wine monster. That's what happened, right? Yeah, but again, you know, and I'll tell my story. Right now I probably weigh about 255, 260, which probably a little higher. I don't look it when you see me walking around, but that's because I do carry a lot in my lower half. I was one of the guys that always had the big hip of beef, and the big legs and stuff. I was a great bike rider, if you remember. Maybe the best, actually, back then. There's a couple of us, we'd ride that bike all night long, but it didn't matter. The other guys falling off it, but that was kind of a testament to myself. But I went to 325, was the highest I ever got with my weight, and that was the time that I looked in the mirror. So what did I do about it, and how did I do it, is really what the story is. So I started off on a Monday morning in the rain, that full weight, and I was able to kind of go back. And I think that's the part with the pro athlete, Jimmy, even a guy like yourself. I mean, you've been around so long, you know how to do it too if you've had a weight thing. A weight issue that you put on the weight. So I put my training mode back on, and I literally started walking for the first week. And then I gradually jogged for maybe a minute and then walked the next 4. So I had a pretty clear head in terms of what I wanted to do. And the best part about it was that I had a clear head to do it daily. Not just say, okay, I'm gonna go Monday and then Thursday, and I'm tired Friday, so I'll go another day. It was 5 days a week. I'd take the weekend off. And the eating part, I liked a lot of sweets. And one of my issues, we'll get to it, I was drinking, without me knowing, not thinking about it, the end of hockey, right? We talked about it. I was drinking between 12 and 18 sodas a day. That's gonna do it. So what I found fascinating when I started, maybe I'll ask you this, Jimmy, because I don't know what happened. I lost 30 pounds in like 3 weeks. It just came right off. I started to actually look more normal even after a month, but I was still then about 290 pounds. I got down to 250, and I really was starting to look good for the first time in probably 7-8 years, because that's how long I've been retired. And I kept pushing through it. I just kept on going. And actually what happened was, is a good lesson to learn, is I went from 325 to 209 in about 9 months. And when I was 209, let me tell you something, I'd never been 209 since I was 15 years old. And it was almost, people would come up to me and they'd be like, you okay? Yeah, I'm okay. I just decided to lose weight and really stay true to eating right and drinking, especially drinking right, tons of water. I don't drink alcohol anymore, and I haven't for an awfully long time, so that helped. But tell me, Jimmy, that we always hear those stories about the first 20 pounds coming off someone who's lost weight. Why is that?
A lot of it's just carbs are just burning right on off, right? Because your body, you think about it, accepting retirement's not the easiest thing to do, right? And then you lose things in that. And you lose the workouts that we went through. You lose the practices that you had. And your body was so used to consuming 6,000 calories, or maybe 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day, right? And just burning it off. right? Now you made a change, right? You've cut back. You cut back. You said you cut back on your diet. You began to exercise. Walking. Walking is a great form of exercise for those of you who want to get started, right? Hippocrates said it over 2,000 years ago and hasn't been disputed that walking is the best form of exercise that you can do, right? It's a great form of exercise. So if you want to get started, just like Chris did, get going on a walking program. Then gradually get yourself going. But one thing,
Go ahead, yeah.
Make sure you consult with your physician right before you start an exercise program. Chris, remember, was the monitor all through his career. Here's one guy that could skate like the wind, right? As big as he could skate like the wind. Here's another guy right now, I couldn't tell you because I was out there doing sprints with him, we'd go on those long runs together, he'd smoke me, and he could run. There's no doubt he was in shape, right? So, being big doesn't mean that you're not athletic, right? By no means, all right? But once you see yourself in that mirror and say, whoa, like, what did I become, right? That's when you have to change, and that's usually when you do change. Another quick story about a professional athlete. I'm going to date myself because working with Pat Croce, I had the pleasure of being with Charles Barkley when we drafted Charles, right, from Auburn. Now, if you can remember, Charles's nickname down Auburn was the round mound rebound, right? He came in, I think it was 284, right? And that was big, but the guy could play. And it was our goal to get him down to 254 before the start of camp. As Chris said, he was hooked on 2 6-packs of Coke a day, plus a bag of chips each time to go with it, right? That'll put an enormous amount of weight on you. Take that away, add like Chris did, an exercise program, and you're gonna drop. So we got him to almost 254 right before the start of camp. So things do happen when you can combine a healthy diet, drink plenty of water, as you're saying, because that does a lot of things for you. But one of the things it does is help curtail your appetite, right? And exercise. Doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah, really, that's really it, is being active. And I think, Jimmy, when you talk about that, so as I said, I got down to that 209, and I think people started looking at me, it's like, okay, you win. You showed everybody. And I mean, when I talked about being lean, I mean, I had 6. Wasn't well put together at that. I had no fat. And I amazingly put it on again pretty quickly. It's just the normal way. So what I do now, though, in terms of that, is I trick back to some of the memories that I have. I don't drink any soda of any kind anymore. I don't miss it. If I need it, I don't like coffee much. I like the taste in my mouth, so I drink a 5-hour energy. That's what I do. That's just personal for me, and I know the Flyers have had them in their locker room too, just to provide energy, maybe a bit of caffeine in my head. But I think really what I do now is I still walk, and I actually ended up that summer, as I said, I went walking to jogging to running to full runs. Like I was going 7-8 miles by the end of that first summer. I think we're programmed a little bit differently. That normal guy's not going to really understand that it's okay to go an hour and a half on a thing like that, or on a big run. But I really did stay with it, and by the end of that summer, this is where I tell people, have hope and believe in yourselves, because it's a confidence thing too. It's not just about how you look, it's about feeling good about yourself and your head as well. And when I came around, I was fitting in the clothes that I hadn't fitted since I played, which was a great feeling. My kids weren't calling me fat anymore, because they were like, hey Dad, you look like a real fat ass. And I'm like, this is an 8-year-old. I'm kind of like turning my head going, this is not what I want to hear from an 8-year-old girl. And it was all my girls, all 3 of them. My son missed the fat stage. But anyway, but that's what it does do. I mean, that's what you want to lose weight for. And I don't blame anybody for putting weight on, because it's probably the easiest single human thing that we do in our lives is put weight on. So I was saying, by the end of that summer, that was about 4 months after it started, I was running just under 1 or 2 seconds under a 6-minute mile for 1 mile. It was a full-out sprint. But if you'd have told me on April 1st that that's what would have happened 4.5 months later, it would have been not as simple a possibility. So again, I created that little challenge in my own head, and I think that's part of weight loss as well too, Jimmy.
No, it is. And one thing I was just thinking of too, things have changed. I mean, we had a nutritionist back then, but not to critique that nutritionist, she did the best she could, but it was new to us.
Yeah.
And, but we didn't have all the luxuries that the players have today too. I mean, remember we'd all pitch in, we'd go up to and get pizzas,
Yeah.
right? Or we
Yep.
get cheesesteaks, right? And back then, you're young and dumb, but you could afford to take those calories in because you burned so many off. But we didn't have those. We didn't have the breakfasts waiting for us. We didn't have the lunches waiting for us, and certainly didn't have the dinners waiting for us. We had to splurge ourselves to go out and get it. But nowadays with pro athletics, and even if you think about college, they've got nutritionists now too. I mean, everything's monitored. They got you down to a T. They know how many carbohydrates that you need as an individual after the game. They know how much protein you need. Does it come through the form of a shake? And then it's like the 30-minute, 90-minute rule. The 30 minutes, you got to get this certain amount of protein and carbohydrates into you. Then you got to get a meal into you, and you got to get ready for the next day. It's all about getting yourself replenished, the glycogen surge, protein resynthesis, and then getting ready for the next game, because the next game could come the next night, like we played many, or the night after, or the other night.
What is the requirement you think a week is from a pro standpoint, like for an average person? What do you like to see an average person get for exercise or some form of sweating or burning calories?
For an athlete, or
Just
for
an average person.
The average person, I like to see some type of cardiovascular exercise at least 3 to 4 times a week. Now, you don't have to go out there and beat yourself up. I do like mixing it up. I used to be an avid runner. I'd run, but now my knees can't take it. So then I switched over to biking, and I love the concept to rower, and I love the gauntlet. So, and the VersaClimber. I mean, there's things out there you can do. So if I want to go for high intensity, short duration type of exercises, I'll go for the VersaClimber and rower and switch on and off of that. If I'm like I did today, I'll be on the bike for about an hour and 2 minutes, and I'll get 20 miles in. I biked indoor today. Then the days I don't, I call my rest days, but then I lift. And I'm not big into heavy lifting anymore. I'm getting to the age that I don't want to feel achy and beat up. So I do a lot of band work. I do a lot of body weight exercises, but I also use blood flow restriction. And because I do have arthritis in my knees, and I figured I'd also get the biggest bang for my buck. And if you want more information about blood flow restriction, feel free to contact me, and I'll give it to you. But it's the latest and greatest way of not just training, but rehabilitation.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the amount of things that have come about too. And I think the other thing too, just when I go along, one of the things I find just in an exercise routine, because I didn't really start exercising as a private citizen until I was retired, because your job is to be in shape and to go to practice, and that's just the way life is. So as a private citizen, it wasn't really until my 40s that I started to work out. One thing that does happen, and Jimmy knows this, most of the time we're doing it alone, right? When we're out, if we're out on our own. So it does get boring sometimes. Some days I want to do, I used to have the thing where I try to go 5 miles, maybe 4 times a week when I first started. That was the goal I got to. But that gets boring, And I'd be lucky enough to travel with my girls' AAU teams in the summer, going to different cities. So I get to maybe run along Lake Michigan to Chicago, which made it great. But for the most part, I go about 3.5 now. It's usually the same route around the lake by my house, but it does get boring. So I think you almost have to trick the body sometimes into what Jimmy was saying, some of the band work. I did a lot of more weights last year, body weight stuff for me, and I thought I got a little bit more tone. This year I stayed more with the running, and I think it ultimately kept weight off, but I didn't tone myself. So there are things, and I think I just picked up on what Jimmy said about doing different things, band work. If running's your thing, I'm telling you, you don't have to stay married to running. You can change it up and still get the same good results because you have your foundation. And I think the thing with running, a lot of people, like if you're Tiger Woods, other athletes say, running, I would have changed everything, it's destroyed my hips. My right hip gets sore. My knees, for some reason, are held up. I don't know why. I feel better when I run. I know that that's what works for me. I've seen weight peel off me running. And so that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I'm going to stay with because it's worked for me. But that doesn't mean anybody that's out there listening that you can't change up your routine. And I agree, 30 minutes a day, if you could find it, just stay active. Whether it's a walk, a light jog, where you just get your blood moving in your body, you're getting to feel good about yourself, confidence is going up. It's amazing too, not only when you look at yourself and see the weight off, it's also what you do with your head too, and how good you start to feel mentally as well.
Yeah, no doubt about it, you're going to feel great. It's that old cliche, the winner's high, because you have that release of endorphins and cathinols going through your body. They're making you feel pretty darn good, or it's your body's own natural painkillers. And you know, it doesn't just come from a runner's high, it comes from if you're swimming, biking, playing pickleball, and pointing out there because there's like 20-some pickleball courts out there, and that's becoming our country's #1 sport. It's growing so rapidly. My recommendation, though, if you haven't exercised in a while, as I said earlier, see your physician, get cleared, make sure that you're okay to go ahead and exercise. You see it way too often that when you're in your 20s, right, I call it you're young and dumb and you feel invincible. Then all of a sudden the family comes in and you're running around, raising your kids, and all of a sudden before you know it, you're 40 and the kids are in high school and you really don't want to hang out with you much, right? So you're sitting around, you're taking a look at yourself in the mirror and saying, geez, I gotta get myself back in shape. And you think that you are what you were back in your 20s. And you go out and all of a sudden, right, you see a lot of people that will have a cardiovascular accident, a heart attack. That's what you don't want. So always get clear. Second bit of advice I could give to you is that there's so much new technology out there, right? And I'm not expecting you all to know the latest and greatest. So consult, right? There's great places, just like I'm going to point right behind the camera here, to the Energy Lab or Recon Sports. Go seek guidance, right? Go see one of their exercise physiologists. Go see a personal trainer who's been well educated. Go see a physical therapist, right? And because I'm saying a physical therapist because if you do have achy knees or a bad hip, there's ways that you can work around that at the same time to strengthen that area and hopefully make you feel better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think the other thing too, Jimmy, just about eating. I'm just trying to think of other things. I'm talking about weight loss. I always have people ask me. That's why we suggested in week 5 we do this because I'm not going to lie. When I lost the weight, Jimmy, I mean, we've been friends forever and worked together for years. And even when I was doing radio and TV, I came back in the fall, and Jimmy'd seen me. It was really odd. We talked to each other. He calls me on the phone, and he said, "Can I ask you a question?" He says, "What did you do?" He goes, "Because I have a friend who's you were talking about a friend." He said, "What did you do? Like, that's ridiculous." And I said, you know who I am. Like, you know me. That's the mode I go into. It's like beast mode almost. Because it's the only most athletes. That's the only thing we know. There's no half speed. It's full speed. But we're saying for the general public, people like that, you can go at your own speed and still do well. The other thing, Jimmy, I want to touch on before we take a question, if anybody has a food intake. Again, this is not for a pro athlete. Just so you guys know, and I always mention this, when I first started doing it, I would stay very much so off the carbs during the week. And the first Sunday of the Sunday every week when I started, I said, you give yourself whatever you want to eat that day. Whether you want to eat a whole cake, you go ahead. If you want to eat 3 steaks, that's your one day to do it. Of course, I never did, but the first week I tried, and every single Sunday after that, I was eating less and less and less. And that's what happened. I must have shrunk my stomach because I was doing the right thing in the week. Bread, pasta, all those things like that. Sometimes, and I think, Jimmy, going back, I was always a guy. The coaches were always watching me going, what's that guy's weight today? He'd come in and be up 3 or 4 pounds, and it wasn't no big deal. He knew that, but coaches had a job to make sure to check in on it. It's not, it wasn't like crashing a bus or anything, but I mean, to them, it can seem like that. So I think for me, pasta, bread, was a complete natural enemy to me because it really did stay in me and it didn't come off, I don't think, as quick as perhaps regular protein meats and stuff like that. Any thoughts?
No. There's some of the ones that damage you the most. I mean, people go out for a pasta meal and all of a sudden you see the homemade bread sitting right in front of you.
Yeah.
And, of course you're going to have to butter it up. and then you're gonna have to wash it down with something, and before you know it, you have excess amount of calories, and before you know it, you have excess amount of weight gain. You know, people hear about Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps is taking in 12,000 calories. Nobody here should be taking in 12,000 calories because nobody, even us, didn't train that hard to burn all 12,000 calories. I would have been fired. He would have been probably sent to Hershey. So,
that's right. You're right. So he's right. He probably would have tried it anyway, but it never happened. But anyway, if we have any questions, we'll take a couple. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up soon. Pat, you've been pretty good every week. Yeah, come on up. Lizzie, come take a question. Come on.
I'm not coming up.
Okay.
Say, like, you have an athlete who's struggling with their weight. Are you going to the nutritionist first, the doctor, or the strength coach to, like, come up with a plan to get it where, like, if it's not working as it is?
So that's a good question. So if you're having one of the players is having an issue, do you go to the nutritionist, the strength coach, or who?
The team doctor.
Or the team doctor. The team doctor won't really care. I would go to Jimmy, personally. That's just me. Going to a nutritionist, to me, I'm an old school guy. I didn't even know what a nutritionist was. We had them. I mean, they're after my time, but I would, it's like, all right, good. I'm going to eat chicken and all pasta. But that was just me. You know, I'm more old school like that. But I'd go to the trainer for sure and say, hey, what's going on? I need to get some weight off me. What should I do? And Jimmy would usually have an answer for me. Within the means, also recognizing that we maybe had a game the next night, or we're coming off a game. So there's a lot of situations. But the athletic trainer is where my bread was always buttered. It was never with those other outsourcing. Anyone else? Yeah. Go ahead, Pat.
I just have a question, like the keto diet, a lot of people have been talking about it. Have you heard about it? What do you think about the keto?
Yeah, the keto diet. So I did this last year. My kids did it. I called it Cheeto because I didn't quite stay right true to it. I cheated, so I called it Cheeto.
Okay.
But my kids did it. My girls did it. They're basketball players. They were done their school year. I wasn't too happy with them doing it because I said, you guys are D1 athletes. There's no need to do it yet. But it does work, Jimmy. As far as I can see, there was results with keto.
yeah, I really can't comment too much about it because I did not do it.
Okay.
I know people that have done it, obviously, and it's worked very well for them. And but getting back to your question, not to disregard yours, because I'm not the fountainhead of old knowledge. That's why we have hired guns and I have my nutritionist. But what would I do if an athlete came to me today and said, listen, I'm really having a difficult time? And what I usually do is get everybody in the same room together. It's myself, it's our team nutritionist, it's our performance people. We've got so many different people, but I want everybody on the same page because the more support you can give the athlete, the better off you are. It'd be just like you, that if we're working with you, the more people that can support you, the better off you are. So, and that's what I like, because then there's no place for that athlete to hide. And not that the athlete's trying to hide, the athlete's actually asking for help. But this way, no matter where they go, if somebody can say, well, how you doing? What'd you have? Boom, boom, boom. And it's all spelled out.
And how can we help?
And I also have our chef there. Because if they need to have a special meal made up, we do that. It's gotten kind of simple in terms of nutrition because we're really trying to educate our boys at a much younger age than when we started.
We would have our pregame lunches, me, guys, Craig Ruby, Keith Jones, Keith Primo. We would eat our pregame meals at Vito's Pizza, 561, pasta and chicken. And away we'd go that night. So, you know what, I guess from that standpoint, it's always good to have a good meal and you don't have to drive down the road to get it now with the new technology and the way that sports are today. So, Jimmy, great stuff again. I hope we gave you guys and gals some insight here in terms of what we're doing. Just a very generic weight loss category, stuff that you'll see as you get older or if you're battling weight now. So we appreciate your time. I know we'll be back next week. We have one?
Yeah,
we are back again next week, so we'll put that out on social media this week, and Jimmy's got some sponsors. Thanks, everybody.
Our sponsors tonight were Total Turf, the Energy Lab, where sports meets science, and Recon Sports. I want to thank you all. Thank you again. We'll see you next week.